Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Commissioner's Brown Bag Luncheon at Maine's 80th Agricultural Trade Show, which is also the first and hopefully only completely virtual ag trade show, as I know we all really hope to be back together again next year at this time. My name is Amanda Beal, and I am the Commissioner of the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. I also want to welcome you to my kitchen table, which is where I've been working quite a bit over the past several months, like many of our staff and many of you. And sharing that with you is also my reminder to say, since this is a brown bag lunch, please feel free to go right ahead and eat while you're here. We have a number of things to share with you in the next 45 minutes or so, including a warm welcome from the governor, which we'll queue up in just a moment, as well as the presentation of the Commissioner's Distinguished Service Award to a most deserving person. But first, I want to extend a special welcome to all of our past department commissioners, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, and representatives of our congressional offices. Since this platform doesn't allow us to show all of you, I would invite you to write your name and affiliation in the comments section, whether you are participating on the Whova platform or watching live on our department YouTube channel or on Facebook. We thank you for attending in whatever format you are joining us here today and for all of your great work on behalf of Maine people. I also want to spend some time telling you about how we here at the department have navigated in this past year to ensure that we're doing all that we can to best support our farmers and our broader agricultural and forestry communities, and what we see on the horizon. And finally, we want to make some time to hear from you, as your feedback is really important to us and will help to shape and solidify our priorities in the coming months. So Nancy McBrady, Director of our Bureau of Agriculture, Food, and Rural Resources, will join me later for a live Q&A discussion. You'll also notice that we've opted not to have additional speakers at the Commissioner's Luncheon this year, as we have so many excellent speakers and presentations spread out over the next few days. And we know that it's not easy to be on many long back-to-back virtual meetings and want to make sure that you have the time and the bandwidth to attend other sessions. For example, you can learn about how Maine Agriculture in the Classroom has been supporting remote learning about agriculture, and later this week hear from 4-H staff about the educational opportunities and ways to engage youth in learning about the Maine food system. There will be sessions where you can learn from our expert staff at the department about things like pest management and residential landscapes, priority infrastructure investments for our state, and food safety. And there are sessions that will cover drought, how innovative food businesses pivoted during the pandemic, resources for farmers accessing various markets, and discussions about the impacts of COVID-19 on our local and national food systems. There will also be forestry-related workshops and an opportunity to learn about solar development considerations for agricultural and forest landowners. And you can even learn how to make cheese and plate up a cheese board, which sounds like a great time to me. Whatever sessions you plug into, I'm sure you will find them useful and interesting. And on that note, I want to say a big thank you to all of our staff at the department who have pulled together this dynamic program, particularly Anne Trenholm, Tanya Perkins, Lee Hallett, Carol Delaney, Yvette Munier, and Nancy McBrady, and others who have had to learn and master new technology and are here working in the background to make sure all goes smoothly today and over the next few days. We have such a great team here, and I'm so proud of how hard they've worked to bring this virtual trade show to all of us. And now, without further ado, I would like to invite you to hear from our governor, Janet Mills.
Hello, this is Governor Janet Mills. As a daughter of Farmington and the granddaughter of potato farmers in the county, I know only too well the hardships that farmers face and the resilience and courage that you show across the state every year. This year, more so than ever. We're celebrating 80 years now of the Maine Agricultural Trade Shows, and that's a real feat. Well, we can't be together in person this year to taste wonderful Maine foods together. As the trade show producers in our Bureau of Agriculture put it, quote, "We are continuing the tradition of camaraderie, education, and innovation only in a virtual format this year. The agricultural industry's contributions to our state are more important now than ever before as we continue to combat the coronavirus epidemic. At the outset of this pandemic, and as more people sought Maine products, Maine grown, Maine produced, Maine raised, our farms, food processors, and food suppliers had to adjust to create safe environments for work for employees and customers both. To ensure that you have resources to stay safe and to supply our state and nation with Maine-grown products, I directed the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry to award more than $18 million in federal CARES Act funds, CRF funds, to Maine farmers, Maine food producers, and food banks and pantries. Commissioner Beal is right now getting ready to award those grants through 3 different relief programs. 1, the Agriculture and Food Processing Infrastructure Reimbursement Program. That's a mouthful. 2, the E-commerce Reimbursement Program. And thirdly, the Food Security Network Reimbursement Program. Well, the first one, Agriculture and Food Processing Infrastructure, that program is administered by the Coastal Enterprises, and it offered $17.3 million in reimbursements to 451 farms, processors, and other food supply chain businesses for COVID-19 related infrastructure investments, for everything from major processing upgrades, which I'm very excited about, to providing necessary PPE. Now, I had originally directed $10 million in CARES Act funding for that program, but to meet the high demand, we've elevated that amount and added other CARES Act money from other allocations to fulfill all eligible applications. Second one, the CARES Act reimbursement, e-commerce reimbursement program, also is administered by the Coastal Enterprises Group, awarded 84 farmers a total of $247,000 in grants for new e-commerce investments, things like online sales management platforms and payment processing and order processing and fulfillment software and website customization made necessary by the pandemic. These programs will last well into the future, and I hope they help invigorate our farms and food processors. The CARES Act Food Security Network Reimbursement Program, the third one, is administered by Catholic Charities of Maine and it reimbursed 88 food banks and pantries with a total of $621,000 for expenses associated with food supply and distribution challenges caused by COVID-19. Things like shelving and freezers and walk-in coolers, basic things, and those things too will last far into the future. Examples of these grants might help you understand them. We awarded grants to people like Oliver Perkins, owner of A Small Good in Rockport, who invested in slicing and packing equipment to help his business begin retail sales. Barry Higgins, owner of Maple Lane Farms in Charleston, who's responding to increased demands for local beef and pork by adding freezer space and upgrading his power supply. Jan Goranson, owner of Goranson Farm in Dresden, who made major website upgrades to manage orders and curbside pickups. And people like Sherry Locke, Development and Communications Manager at Aroostook County Action Program, who used that group's grants to purchase PPE for staff and to distribute food to families in their early care and education program. Look, I know that a lot more direct financial aid is needed. I've written several times to USDA Secretary Perdue to insist that Maine producers be included in critical federal aid. For example, with the support of Maine's congressional delegation, we've urged the Secretary to designate Maine maple syrup as an eligible coronavirus food assistance program specialty crop to allow Maine's maple syrup producers to receive needed CFAP payments. I will continue to call on the department and the new Secretary of Agriculture for direct relief for Maine farmers, food producers, forestry landowners struggling economically due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, Maine's agricultural community, I know all too well, is at the foundation of our state's past, present, and future. Please know that I am so grateful for the ways you have adapted over these last long months, and that my administration will continue to deploy every available resource to support your members who have served our state and our people so well for many, many generations. With that, I will turn things back to Commissioner Beal, and thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Director McBrady, and all of those who helped organize this event. Let's really hope that we can all be together this time next year at the Civic Center up the road, enjoying Maine-grown potatoes, beef, pork, chicken, blueberries, and maple candy. In the meantime, please stay safe. Thank you.
Very well said, Governor. And now, at this point in our program, it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce the recipient of the 2021 Commissioner's Distinguished Service Award. To many of you, this person really needs no introduction, as she is well known for her numerous contributions to agriculture in the state. She is also someone who I have admired for many years as a leader and a person who rolls up her sleeves and gets things done. Her energy and creativity seem boundless, and she is truly selfless with her time and talent. If there was ever someone who deserved to be recognized for her distinguished service, it is one Penelope Jordan, known to most as Penny. Penny Jordan, a fourth-generation farmer in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, grew up on the farm she currently operates alongside her brother Bill Jr. and sisters Pam and Carol Ann, and her nephew Phil, the farmer in training. In 1999, Penny had the opportunity to rejoin the family business, Jordan's Farm, a 60-acre mixed vegetable and market farm. Penny worked with her father Bill and her siblings to transition his passion, the farm, to the next generation and fulfill Bill Sr.'s dream that his farm would always be a working farm and remain a significant part of the community. Jordan's farm grows a wide variety of products with a significant focus on strawberries, tomatoes, corn, pumpkins, green beans, lettuces, and salad greens. The Jordan's primary market is retail. They have a seasonal farm stand on farm, and in 2014, they teamed up with Farmers Gate Market from Wales, Maine, to create a year-round store in South Portland, which features Maine meats, produce, and other products, now called Solo Cucina Market. Jordan's Farm's products are also available at wholesale through local distributors and at local stores and restaurants. Penny was instrumental in starting the Cape Farm Alliance, a community-based organization that's focus is ensuring that farms in Cape Elizabeth remain a vibrant part of the community. She has been a member of the Maine Farm Bureau since 2009 and has served as president of the organization. Penny has also served on the board of Cumberland County Farm Bureau, is currently on the board of Maine Sustainable Agriculture Society, and a member of New England Farmers Union. She has also served on countless ad hoc committees and work groups related to agriculture over the years. In addition to her involvement in agricultural organizations, Penny serves on the Cape Elizabeth Town Council, chairing the Ordinance Committee and representing Cape Elizabeth on the Maine Municipal Association's Policy Committee. Penny's passions are Maine agriculture and ending hunger in Maine, and she is active in hunger prevention programs in southern Maine. In mid-2019 and into 2020, we were very fortunate at the department that Penny was available to lead a project for us in the Commissioner's office as we charted course to create an interim framework that would guide work to end hunger in Maine by 2030, as we were charged to do by the passage of LD 1159 during the 129th legislative session. Penny jumped right in with both feet and demonstrated her resourcefulness and her ability to pull people together from various organizations and state departments. What this group accomplished was to lay a strong foundation for the work to continue, even after being interrupted by a global pandemic, which also truncated the legislative session that we were depending upon for resources to move the initiative forward. As the world around us changed quickly, I recall Penny saying to me one day in the spring that the place she was needed most at that time was on the farm figuring out how to feed her own community. Those words stayed with me over these many months, over and over again, reminding me of how lucky we are to have such dedicated people amongst us, our farmers. I'm happy to say that the foundation Penny helped to create was enduring and helped us to later find philanthropic resources to move forward with the work to end hunger. But I'll save the details on that for later in the session. For right now, what's most important is to thank Penny for her amazing work in getting us going. I should also mention that Penny is currently working to form an organization, Farms for Food Equity, that will move Maine farm products into the charitable food system, and no doubt will play an important role in ending hunger in our state. Penny has over 30 years of experience in project management and business planning. She holds a master's degree in social work, focusing on community organizing and program design, and she brings many skills from that training into her everyday work. And she is passionate about all Maine farms and works to find ways to expand market reach for farms across Maine. Penny knows Maine's agriculture industry has potential for growth and success and wants to be part of the ever-growing cadre of passionate people who are seizing this opportunity. She believes that taking action to ensure the long-term viability and profitability of our farm businesses is one way to attract the next generation to the farm and grow agriculture in Maine. Penny, this state is so lucky to have you, as is our agricultural community. So now I'd like to pass the mic so you can share any thoughts that you'd like to at this time. Sounds like we might be having some technical difficulties bringing Penny through. Let's wait just another moment, and if we're not able to, what I will do is continue on, and then we will bring her on live if we're able to work out the difficulties. Okay, looks like we're still having some challenges. Hopefully Penny can join us and we can patch her through. But if we're not able to, again, thank you, Penny. I will also note that we'll be mailing your award along, as we can't be in person this year, and we'll also be adding your name to the plaque that hangs in the department, along with all of the previous esteemed recipients of this annual award. So congratulations again, Penny. This recognition of your many contributions is so well deserved. Now, before we shift gears here, I would also like to take a moment to recognize that Maine Agriculture in the Classroom has announced its 2021 Teacher of the Year, Abby Plummer, a fifth grade teacher at the Edna Drinkwater School in Northport, who has built an exciting, engaging, and rigorous curriculum for her students that infuses agricultural concepts into her classroom in many creative ways. Congratulations to Abby, and thank you for all you are doing to educate students about agriculture in Maine. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons we opted not to have additional speakers at this session was to encourage you to spend more time in other sessions. We also recognize that we're not actually serving you lunch, so that might make it harder for some to stick around for an hour or more. But another reason is that we know that this has been an odd year that has left us with far fewer opportunities to be together in places such as our agricultural fairs and other annual events, and also to spend time together more informally. So we wanted to create some time and space here to connect and discuss what's on your minds. But before we get to that, I want to share some reflections on 2020 in a slightly different way than you may have heard from others, since there's been a lot of optimism expressed about leaving that year behind us. I am actually going to take a few minutes to talk about some of the positive things that have happened in the last year. I'm calling this the top 10 things we are grateful for in 2020 at the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. It's not a comprehensive list and not laid out in any particular order, but here are some bright spots that I think it's worth reflecting upon. Number one, our farmers, food processors, restaurants, and retailers who, in facing great market disruptions beginning early last year, made modifications practically overnight in some cases that created new market channels and implemented new protocols that kept food flowing to customers and community members alike, while keeping them and their workers safe. This was a great challenge for many businesses, and one which they rose to meet most impressively. Number two, consumers who went to whatever lengths necessary to support Maine producers and seek out Maine-grown food and other agricultural products. We have been heartened to hear numerous stories of people reaching out to find ways to support our farmers, whether buying direct through farm stands, at farmers markets, or through CSA shares, to institutions that were in a position to make large purchases from commodity growers to help ease the back supply of inventory. Number three, the overwhelming support for the growing number of Mainers experiencing food insecurity. Although the result of great struggle, Maine people who could have generously given to fill the needs that our hardworking food security network has worked tirelessly to meet and will continue to do so at this heightened level of need as it persists in our state. Number four, strong partnerships. From the early days of the pandemic, we met regularly with other service provider organizations like Cooperative Extension, the Maine Farm Bureau, Agricultural Council of Maine, Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association, Maine Farmland Trust, and others, plus all four of our congressional offices, as we began to share information in real time from what we were each hearing from producers and industry representatives directly, to results of various surveys, to make sure that we all had the most up-to-date information and could best coordinate our collective response. And more strong partnerships. As we moved toward the height of the season, it was clear that we needed to ensure that we had a centralized way to help make sure that our migrant worker population and the farmers that employ them had the resources they needed to be tested, quarantined, and, if necessary, provided with translation services. And in that regard, we were infinitely grateful for the leadership role played by Maine Migrant Health Program, Mano a Mano, and Catholic Charities of Maine. Number five, collaboration within state government. From the Department of Corrections supplying 4,000 face coverings that we were able to distribute for free to farmers and farm workers, to ongoing collaboration with Maine Center for Disease Control, the Department of Economic and Community Development, and others to sort out safe business operating and reopening protocols, to our Maine Forest Rangers helping to coordinate our getting greatly increased amounts of food delivered through our Emergency Food Assistance Program throughout the state, to our state parks offering up spots to food trucks that would have otherwise made a good portion of their income from our agricultural fairs. Oftentimes, whenever there was a need, there was a willing entity within state government that stepped up, got creative, and helped us get that need met. Number six, unwavering support from Governor Mills. By being an ongoing champion of our agricultural, forestry, and conservation needs, from writing supportive letters to the USDA, like those to advocate for making sure that maple syrup producers, as well as loggers and haulers, benefited from the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, and supporting department letters urging the inclusion of Maine distributors in the Farmers to Families Food Box Program, to allocating more than $18 million that made the CARES Act grant programs possible that the governor spoke about earlier. We all feel so fortunate to have a governor who truly cares about our natural resource industries and the people in them, and is willing to step up to bat for us whenever we need her to. Number seven, Our members of the Joint Standing Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, and other legislators who have been very helpful and supportive of our work by bringing concerns and suggestions forward time and again. Number 8, our exceptional department staff and all that they have done to ensure smooth operations in a very disruptive time. From adapting quickly to remote working, to organizing a parking lot licensing program to ensure pesticide certificates were kept up to date, to uninterrupted inspection of critical food and agricultural businesses. They also launched our revitalized Real Maine branding program, helping connect consumers with farms and food producers at this critical time. And staff very quickly created a COVID-19 website specific to agriculture and food producers and continue to populate it with resources available to assist our community and to provide critical guidance in key areas, including physical distancing at public and non-public facing agricultural businesses, farmers market best practices, cleaning and disinfection of food manufacturing facilities and/or retail food stores, and migrant and seasonal farm workers, employers, and housing provider safety. Number 9, Zoom, Teams, Whova, etc. Yes, really. Even though there are many days that we are all in front of our screens nonstop and can't imagine yet another video call, this technology has been incredibly helpful. Whether just day-to-day FaceTime with staff, enabling the Maine Climate Council to continue its work and adopt the Climate Action Plan as scheduled last December, to our foresters and entomologists creating what we've called the online Forest Trifecta to recognize Arbor Week, National Invasives Week, and Emerald Ash Borer Week, to virtual Bureau holiday gatherings, and then to this virtual agricultural trade show. We've continuously stretched the bounds of connecting remotely, and it has been well worth it. And finally, number 10, optimism. In the fall of last year, I had a chance to go out with our Bureau directors and talk with representatives of both agricultural and forestry-related businesses, our regional department staff, and other stakeholders. And we were amazed that with all of the challenges, Mainers are a very resilient and optimistic bunch. That gives us great confidence that we'll continue to work together to weather any challenges in these important sectors ahead. And overall, we will persevere. And knowing that there are obstacles ahead, I want to shift now to talking about some of the things that we're looking forward to in the coming months and year ahead, like continuing to promote and build on the Real Maine brand, which we've received so much positive feedback about since unveiling the logo at last year's trade show. There's been a lot of great work on the website at getrealgetmaine.com, which now has a searchable directory of food and farms, markets, home delivery options, and so much more. This resource will continue to grow, and we welcome your ideas about how our Real Maine brand can serve you best. We are also eager to build on lessons learned from this pandemic and its impact on our food system. It's clearer than ever where our vulnerabilities lie, where bottlenecks exist, and where there is opportunity to address obstacles and deficits that can strengthen our ability to produce, process, and distribute food through a more resilient system that serves Mainers and other markets further afield. On this front, I do hope you will attend the discussion about Bureau priorities and infrastructure needs tomorrow from 12:15 to 1:15 to hear more about this topic. We are also committed to continuing our work to eradicate hunger in our state. Through the generosity of the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation, the Sewell Foundation, and the John T. Gorman Foundation and Hannaford Supermarkets, we are well positioned to complete the strategic plan to end hunger by 2030 later on this year, as directed by LD 1159. In addition, we have been selected to host a pilot AmeriCorps program, which will place 25 VISTA members across Maine to form a network dedicated to working on the root causes of hunger. At a time when food insecurity is so high, we feel fortunate to have these resources available to our state. We look forward to building on the strong partnerships that we have in place and adding to them. We all know that resources are limited, but based on the creative thinking and action over the past year, I know these relationships, inside and outside of state government, represent a strength that we can build on. And we are dedicated to finding ways to implement recommended strategies from the Maine Climate Action Plan that will help us to build greater resilience for our farms, forests, and natural lands, and the sectors of our economy and the people whose livelihoods depend on them. In addition, we're eager to continue using our communications platform to tell stories about our hardworking and dedicated farmers, forestry professionals, and of our beautiful parks and public lands, and the people who steward them. If you have a story for us to highlight, please reach out. Elevating the importance of the work that you all do to build public support and awareness is an important function of our department. And finally, in looking forward, we will continue to have a transparent and collaborative approach to our policy efforts, working alongside legislators and stakeholders, both at the state and national level, and working with all of you to help inform our work from the ground up. These are just some of the activities that we're excited about digging into, but we want to use the remainder of our time here together to hear from you. What are you excited about or concerned about, and how can we best support your work? So at this time, I'd like to ask Nancy McBrady to join me as we transition into the opportunity for a Q&A session. And if you have any questions or comments, anything you'd like us to talk about, please feel free to type them into the comments section, and we will have someone helping to moderate those for us and making sure that we see them. And we also, I believe we have a couple of polls ready that we wanted to post to start things off, just to help us know who's out there. And so, see how this goes. Welcome, Nancy.
Hey, Commissioner Beal. I don't know if we have any questions as of yet, so definitely encourage anyone who's out there listening to enter a question into your chat option. And I'll just take a moment to recognize that the artwork behind me is not my own. It happens to be that of two children who have been very busy in the last 10 or 11 months. And your background as well, Commissioner, has resonance as well for you, as I understand it.
Yes, it does. It's actually behind me is the timetable that hung in the Freeport train station until it closed in the 60s. My grandfather was the station master, and it's really wonderful. It details all the train timetables from, you know, up through the mid-coast, up into Aroostook County when we had that extensive of a network of train travel. And I'll also say that since we're now in the more unscripted part of our program, I'm glad nobody saw me trying to shuttle my cats into another room while the governor was speaking on screen. And that's just sort of indicative of all of the things that we've had to juggle when we work from home. But we figured it out for the most part.
That's terrific. Well,
great. I think there is a poll up. It looks like people are answering, and I'm not sure that we can post. It says we have people from Aroostook and Cumberland, and I think some other counties as well. Maybe what we can do is put together a little summary at the end of this and share it out with folks.
Terrific. There are a couple of questions coming in. So Commissioner, perhaps you could take a stab at this one. One is any numbers to share about the financial impact of COVID on Maine agriculture. That's down at the bottom of our screen here. And then we also had another one that came in about, will there be more CARES Act grant opportunities, which is a great question. And then maybe commenting on the USDA food box program. So I'll defer to you how you might want to answer that or divvy that up.
Yes, well, actually, Nancy, maybe you can speak a little bit about the research that we are working on in collaboration with the university to look at some of the impacts to the economy. And I will say that we are, we're trying to really keep our arms wrapped around the impacts. We've done surveys with producers to try to understand that. And I do know that some of that information was shared in the grant applications for the infrastructure grant program, but it may be a while before we have a full sense of the impact, but we're working to understand that daily.
Yeah, I would also just mention too that the Maine Farmers Resource Network has done a number of polls throughout this entire last year, directly interfacing with ag producers about the impacts of COVID to their businesses. And that is something that can be found, I believe, on Cooperative Extension's website. We'll be touching on this a little bit more tomorrow in a session about data management and data collection, which is really a goal for our department about Maine agriculture. And the impacts to COVID, I think, will be wrapped into that to some degree. But first and foremost, we're really pushing to be able to provide baseline information to producers in the state of Maine about the state of agriculture. Just basic data that can be useful for a host of different applications and uses. And we're going to be doing that with collaboration with the University of Maine, Economics Department and Cooperative Extension and others. So there'll be some speaking to that tomorrow in greater detail. And I also know that there's just a lot of other work that's being done to try and quantify those impacts. I believe that there is actually going to be a speaker towards the end of the week. Professor Mulcarney, I believe, from University of Maine, is also going to be speaking about some of the research he's done about impacts to Maine food systems. So not anything that I can speak to at this time, but certainly there are resources available that kind of break it apart across the spectrum.
Great, thanks, Nancy. I think another question was about, will there be other CARES Act funded grant programs? At this time, we don't have any additional resources for additional grant programs. I think we're all watching and waiting to see if there's another relief package that passes that does provide funding directly to the states, because that is what makes it possible to stand up grant programs like that. But until we know whether or not that's going to happen, it's really difficult to say. And I think a question about the farmers to family food boxes, was it a specific, are there hopes for future USDA food box programs? So as most of you probably know, because we wrote a letter to the USDA recently, really encouraging them to include Maine distributors in round 5, which is the round that's this next round. And so far to date, we've only seen Maine distributors included in one round. That was round 2, and they did a fantastic job. And we feel strongly that we would really like to see distributors from Maine able to accommodate the need in Maine and to have the opportunity to work with our farmers to get their products into those food boxes. So there is going to be continued relief through the food box program, and we are going to continue to advocate for benefit to Maine. Do we see any other questions here?
Yeah, there's one I think that I could take, Commissioner, about priorities around infrastructure, and in particular having to do with Maine state inspected or USDA inspected livestock processing capabilities. That is something we are very familiar with as having been a bottleneck. We do know that there are producers that are booked solid through 2021 and are actually looking to 2022 to be able to process Maine raised livestock, and that really is a bottleneck on our food systems here. I would just remark first by saying we know that there's a need for expansion in these particular areas. And it is something that we were able to actually put money towards in this very recent grant, CARES grant reimbursement opportunity. And we have some cool numbers that we can share tomorrow about where some of that funding went. But we do know that slaughterhouses and processing facilities were recipients of that. And we're really happy to have been able to do it, but more needs to be done. And that is certainly something that we're looking into in terms of going forward and prioritizing investments, and how can we provide these learnings that we gathered from this grant reimbursement opportunity and provide that to the legislature, provide it to other partners to hopefully leverage investment going forward in that area. Now, our program, our inspection program, you know, we are under FSIS, and we have to, you know, be within the confines of that program. We have to meet those specifications very carefully. So, you know, there are differences, key differences in federal law that require, you know, inspected facilities to be different than you know, custom slaughter, and that is something that we know can be, you know, problematic or cause a little bit of a constraint. And so it is something that we always want to work creatively with. We have a good relationship with USDA, but it is also something that we have to remember to remain in compliance with too. So there is tension there, and it's just something that we have to figure out how to work with creatively. And if we can start by making investments here in the state of Maine, that there are more or larger production facilities, that would be a real great start.
Great, thanks, Nancy. There's a great question here. Maybe it's a good one for both of us to speak to. What innovations have most impressed you in the way Maine agriculture has responded to COVID? Well, the word innovations, I guess you could use that broadly, but I just want to say first and foremost, I'm really proud of how quickly our Bureau of Agriculture staff just, you know, jumped to action when we could see that markets were going to be disrupted, and we could see what was happening with bottlenecks with meat processing and other challenges that were already, you know, cropping up in the early days of the pandemic. They just acted so quickly, and I'm very grateful for that. And I know a lot of producers and farmers are as well. And then I think also just the innovation in farmers coming together and figuring out new ways to get their food to people and doing it so quickly, and you know, organizations that jump to help them, you know, University of Maine and others. It really took a village, and I think I'm also really grateful for the collaborative work we were able to do with all of the organizations I mentioned earlier to try to make sure that we were able to support the needs out there in a way that wasn't duplicating efforts, but was more additive and beneficial in that way. But Nancy, would you like to say a few words on this?
Echoing what you said, I think there's been a remarkable collective energy between producers, the collaboration. You know, some farms really brought together, I mean, for example, what Penny Jordan and working with other producers in order to create basically a new point of access for food. That has been replicated throughout the state with other people working together. I just moderated a panel prior to this one where we had Amber Lamke from Maine Grains, we had Kelby Young from Old Haven Farm, we had Scott Longfellow, and we had Hannah Semler from Farm Drop, and all of them spoke to really the importance of communication, clear communication, with their customers. Customer managing expectations was really important, but something that they successfully navigated. And really just everybody joining forces with the rising tide lifting all boats, you know, mentality, so that people could really work together and meet demand and cultivate customer loyalty as well. Now that there are so many more people understanding that food is available in Maine year round, and that they do have a farmer or a food producer nearby that they never knew of before, the message is getting out there, and we're very hopeful that that will have a lasting impact, even when COVID is hopefully far behind us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'll add, just in closing, as we're getting past our time here, that, you know, when we've spoken to businesses individually, every single one of them has a story about how they've had to innovate. And so, you know, it's very, in some ways it's a case by case basis, but just knowing that everyone was so committed to trying to figure it out and work through the challenges, we just feel great about it. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it gives us real hope and real optimism for the future of food production in Maine. So with that, thank you everybody so much for being here. I think what we will probably try to do is get a standalone video of Penny Jordan accepting her award and try to somehow attach it to this video. But again, thank you so much everyone for all that you do. We look forward to hopefully seeing you all in person next year.